it's not for everybody, but we need some people to pour that information back into the industry, whatever that means to you. Take it forever, whatever it is, and wherever you have the opportunity, no matter what your educational background, trust me, I got taught a whole lot of chemistry from a guy that kept his pants up with a rope. You know.
That's a metaphor I haven't heard before. I'm not so sure I really think about that one for very long.
I'll leave it there.
I'm going to throw the proverbial hand grenade, the punch bowl. We've talked about oil and oil growing, and Pete talked about 3 million a day. At Bentech, we can easily put a scenario together that says oil production increases 5 million a day. We consume about 5 million a day right now, we produce about 5 million a day, something like that right now. So that means in 5-10 years we could be doubling our production. When we think about that, we hadn't thought about some of the productivity improvements that George talked about. So I think the resource is clearly there to be a whole lot, to see a lot more production out of the United States than anybody really imagines. And it's easy to dismiss it, but that's what they said about gas about 3 or 4 years ago too. So you can't really just dismiss it that way. So here's the question. To what degree does that production of oil compete with production of gas? In the sense that, number one, it takes resources away from dry gas. Number two, it sets up competition between dry gas and liquids, oil-prone areas, so that you could take some of the basins, the Rockies, for example, that just produce dry gas, that are going to be economically disadvantaged relative to the basins that produce liquids and oil. I'm just kind of interested in the comments of the panel on that. Jim, you want to start?
I'll start. One of the slides I had was since the beginning of the year, we've gained 8 rigs for every, and lost 1 rig a week or 6 rigs, gained 6 rigs for oil and 1 rig down for natural gas a week since the beginning of the year. The transition or the competition, good word, competition for that has already started, if not it's in full bore. And for every rig that goes into the oil field, it's 1 less rig that goes into the natural gas field. And I think as the commodity impact of crude oil being a quasi-currency that has occurred over the last 3 or 4 years continues, and the demand on a global basis, we were at 86 million barrels a day before the recession started, and we're now at 89 million barrels a day. So energy demand from a crude oil perspective has gone nothing but higher from all the known sources, China, India, Russia, et cetera. As that continues, the oil price differential to natural gas stays as dramatically diverse as it is, you're going to see more and more small to medium-sized oil companies, especially since they can drill fewer rigs than they used to based upon credit limitations and the restrictions associated with that. That competition is going to become more acute as we go forward. And even now, I'm hearing a lot more noise in that producer field of going towards more oil production just from a return on investment perspective. So I see that we're just now starting that competition. And one of my graphs was that we've already crossed, and it's very acute.
I get the comments from the rest of the panel, but I want to throw one last twist to it too, because it's, this all predicated on $80, $100 oil. What happens if we produce enough oil to drop the price to 60? Does this continue? So now, go ahead.
Yeah, you had something.
I'm just going to make one comment here. Remember that of the oil that we produce, a significant amount of it is used as a transportation fuel. And we import both oil and a lot of gasoline because there hasn't been a new refinery built in the United States since 1979. If we displace oil or gasoline or diesel with compressed natural gas, and it's on a price differential basis here, you will knock out quite a bit of the market for oil. And it's very possible here that another 5 million, 3 to 5 million barrels a day of oil produced here in the U.S., along with a CNG movement, especially with delivery trucks, buses, vans, et cetera, it's very possible that you're going to see a sharp curtailment in all imported oil and gasoline products, and it's going to be a lot more complicated to figure out this than just one versus the other, because it's going to be a mix of opportunities here for gas.
Pete, did
Yeah.
you?
Well, thanks, great. You know, if we stick with the principles here, I guess the good news is we now are identifying a rapidly increasing technically recoverable oil resource here in the United States in parallel to what happened to gas over the last, you know, gas was 7 years, we're only 2 years into the liquid side. The point is that that is bringing up a lot of competition here in the near term, no doubt about it. And interestingly, though, because we're seeing the new technologies applied across reservoirs that have both liquids and gas, I think what I'm seeing is that there isn't going to be just a one-off, you know, rigs for gas, rigs for oil. We're going to get benefit of both fluids out of the combination. So I don't think it's going to end up being quite as impacty as, you know, the specter of, as a what about gas. If we look at